Here we are.
Sorry about that. Examination of a charism-based approach to collaborative archival preservation. I'm going to introduce everyone, and then we'll go ahead and get started. We'll have time for questions at the end. So today we'll be hearing from Holly Fiedler, an archivist for the Sisters of the St. Francis of Penance and Christian Charity Sacred Heart Community in Denver, Colorado. She's also board president for the Franciscan Central Archives, whose vision is a sustainable archival repository for Franciscan organizations. She is also a board member of the Chicago Collaborative Archive Center, whose mission is to create a collaborative archive in Chicago. Holly has worked in the archives for 12 years, 2 years in museums collection management, 14 years in conservation. She has a Master of Art Conservation, 3 Bachelors of Science, and is certified with the Society of American Archivists as a digital archive specialist. Sister Mary Serbacki holds an MA in History and Archives Administration from the University of Michigan. She is the Province Archivist for the Holy Name Province of the Sisters of St. Francis of Penance and Christian Charity, and also serves as the Archivist for the General Aid Archives of her congregation in Rome, Italy. A past president of ACWR, she's a founding member of the organization and is also a board member and treasurer of the Franciscan Central Archives. Sister Mary is active with local archivists in Western New York. Next, we have Veronica Buchanan, and she is the secretary of the board of the Franciscan Central Archives. Previously, she served as the archives consultant for an American Academy of Franciscan History grant-funded project to fully assess the collections of committed partners. She also serves as the executive secretary for ACWR, as well as the archivist for the Sisters of Charity in Cincinnati. And last but not least, we have Sister Joanne Schlotzlein, currently serves as the director for the Sisters of St. Francis of Assisi. Wait, is this right? Yeah. Okay. St. Francis of Assisi in Wisconsin. She was an associate director on the leadership team from 1995 to 1999. She holds a bachelor's degree in nursing from Marquette University and a master's degree in Franciscan Studies from the St. Bonaventure University. She serves the sisters as a registered nurse for many years, both as the health center at the Mother House in St. Francis and at St. Colata of Wisconsin in Jefferson. She was director of the healthcare for the congregation from 1985 to 1987. Sister Joanne is also known for her work leading pilgrimages to Franciscan sites around the world.
Well, thanks for all of you for coming after lunch, and it'll freak us out if you snore too loudly, if you drift off. We'll try to be entertaining enough that you won't, but, just keep that in mind. I think by now you probably realized, if you didn't know before you came to the conference, that collaborative archives are a hot topic. The future of our collections is an area of concern for all religious congregations. Although you, I'm sure, have heard another presentation or more on this topic during these days while we've been together, we hope that our approach to a charism-based collaborative will provide you all with some food for thought and possibly some new or additional information on the overall issue. The Franciscan Central Archive, FCA, had its roots in 2017 with a question put to Sister Kathy Euler, who was then president of the Franciscan Federation, by Paul Spaeth. He was the library director and rare books librarian at the Friedsam Memorial Library at St. Bonaventure University. Paul's question was essentially, what's going to happen to the archives of Third Order Franciscans, TOR congregations, as they reach the point of no longer being able to maintain their own collections? His combined answer and question were, why not a central TOR repository? With that incentive, Sister Kathy put out an invitation to congregational leaders and archivists of Third Order Franciscans to meet via Zoom to consider the possibility of a charism-based collaborative repository for the archival collections of TOR congregations. The initial conversations resulted first in the formation of a task force, which soon grew into the TOR Central Archive Working Group by 2018. It was at that point, although we continued to have support from the Federation, but it should be made clear that the FCA today is not affiliated with the Franciscan Federation. Although it first aimed solely at TOR congregations, from the beginning there were members of other members of the Franciscan family who expressed interest in establishing a repository to hold the collections, which together helped to tell the important story of the charism, spirituality, mission, and legacy of the Franciscan movement in the U.S. It was apparent that there were Franciscan congregations among the larger family, first and second orders, as well as secular Franciscans, who would also need assistance in providing a permanent repository for their collections. It became ever more clear to the members of the working group that in order to document the North American Franciscan story, it was necessary to widen our tent, so to speak, to provide the possibility of including collections of members of other branches of the Franciscan family, men, women, vowed, and secular. This led in 2021 to a name change to the Franciscan Central Archive, the FCA.
Our mission statement is, the FCA preserves, protects, and provides access to the records of its Franciscan entities for the purposes of research and knowledge through a collaborative repository that will carry the Franciscan charism and legacy into the future. Participating members are engaged in the decision-making process. Each new member starts with an archival assessment. Veronica, the FCA's lead archivist, works with the member archivists to gather information, performs an on-site assessment of the member archives, and meets with the leadership team. This informs the FCA of their collection and needs. Assessments define the individual and collective needs, define next steps, and outline the annual and multiple-year strategic planning. The FCA offers guidance and resources concerning the care of archives and the assistance to leadership, such as the process to hire an archivist. We are collaborating to be awarded additional grants for archival preservation and future digital exhibits. Members need support to prepare their collections, and the FCA will need to meet each member's needs and schedules to move their archives. We meet them where they're at, their timeline. The board will work with each member to complete agreements, and legacy planning will include an endowment.
And as Michelle shared earlier, I initially connected with the FCA through a request for proposals that was circulated for a grant-funded project through the American Academy of Franciscan History. They were looking for a consultant to conduct assessments for the 6 partners at that time. The methodical approach and a sense of understanding from my work with the Franciscan Sisters of the Poor led me to submit an application, and that project has now led into a board position and conducting additional assessments as new partners have joined. So the entire assessment process that we conduct with the FCA includes forming a basic assessment with both archivists and leaders to determine basic information about the kinds of material included in the collection, estimates of linear and square footage, major potential accruals, record groups, and other key information to know it in advance before a physical visit. From there, we utilize a 29-page document to fully assess every aspect of the archive's collections and administration in immense detail, calculating linear footage estimates for every record type, as this slide demonstrates, and learning about policies in place as well as the environmental history for the collection, just to name a few major items. This slide provides our current total linear footage count just for photograph, negative, and slide collections, along with an average count from an individual partner collection. So this and the next slide represent how we have taken that information for each FCA partner and amalgamated it together to learn about how much physical space is currently being utilized in total, as well as an average partner space. The total linear footage helps us know pretty precisely how much storage we need overall, as well as for artifacts, books, architectural drawings, material that will require more specialized housing. So the numbers shared on this slide for the average are skewed a bit because we do have a couple of partners that have more substantive collections. So the median figure actually provides a better sense of the true average space we're seeing with the majority of our partners. So that's, yeah, where are we here? Losing, there we go. Yeah, so typically we've been seeing for total archival space of around 1,000 square feet, and that includes offices, processing space, reading room if that exists, and then for the repository about 700 to 800 square feet. So the full assessment process on site typically takes 2 full days, with an optional 3rd day reserved for meetings with community leadership if they can't meet at the end of the 2nd day to discuss the findings of the 29-page report. I quickly found that both leaders and archivists would benefit from having a more manageable summary to work from, so I formed a summary of the key recommendations outlined in the report. That was the foundation for what would become an action plan that is only about 1 to 2 pages long and would give an overall snapshot of core information about the archives. So that includes the recommendations from the full assessment and a specific transition timeline for each partner. This timeline figure is compiled from discussions with both leaders and archivists, as well as consulting the CARA survey leadership response if available and applicable. From there, I consult both the assessment recommendations and timeline to form feasible action items with a designated timeline for each action item. The final meeting with leaders provides an opportunity to discuss serious needs for the archives that might have been voiced in the past, but now have an outside recommendation to bolster the need. The overall assessment process also can provide archivists the opportunity to reach out to other congregational departments or affiliated ministries to learn more about what kinds of records are stored in each space and begin forming a collaborative effort to transfer materials that should continue with the archival collection. So as I shared, the assessment allowed us to form a space allocation matrix to determine what we'd need for every aspect of the FCA's operation. Learning more deeply about exactly what kind of records exist in each partner collection have given us the opportunity to look into collaborative grant opportunities, and we plan to initiate our first application in this sphere next year. Outside of each partner, the action plans also help the FCA board identify each partner's specific needs and guide them with assisting community leadership in meeting these goals. Examples of this outreach include assisting in forming a position description and participating on the search committee for a project archivist, and providing recommendations for purchasing scanning equipment suited to the partner's specific needs. The initial grant project allowed for assessments to be conducted for every FCA partner at that time. Subsequently, we are committed to continuing to conduct assessments for every new committed partner. Having this information collectively also alerted us to areas of collective need within the group. The assessments have also been vital for FCA's strategic planning efforts as an organization, not only informing the spatial needs of the collections, but also in identifying areas that we could work towards together with our partners. Out of this revelation, an archives committee was formed to work on projects as a group, including the formation or finalization of archival policies and procedures for each partner archive, creating or finalizing a digital community member list, and writing descriptions for each partner's record groups. We prioritize finalizing policies so that we will define each partner's decisions on access, restrictions, and use for their collection. With these initial archivists, with these initial projects, we hope to form a binder for each partner collection that future FCA archivists can consult to learn about policies in place, names of sisters from the community, a description of how the collection is organized, and eventually a summary of the history of the community and a ministry timeline. So in summation, I hope this portion of the presentation has demonstrated how the assessment fits into the overall vision of the FCA. I also find the process imperative for bringing leaders and archivists together to form a structured plan for addressing the needs of any archival collection and preparing it for eventual transition. Any collaborative archival initiative would benefit from considering the implementation of an assessment process in their overall planning. There is no better way to learn about each collection than to do an intensive study like the one we have utilized. We've shared our process with the toolkit team, and I believe you'll see an assessment template included there along with a case study statement for the FCA project.
So some points for consideration. Each entity's policies, including restrictions, inform the FCA policies. We see that the role for the FCA is to provide guidance and resources to help meet each partner's needs, to help build each partner in preparation for their archives to move in the future, and to build the infrastructure for the collaborative archive. This is the basis for all our work. Engagement and building relationship with leadership is vital. Let's pause for a moment and look back at what we've already defined. So when are communities looking at transitioning their archive to a permanent repository? For this, we can look to a few places, and I encourage you to evaluate if you already have this. In 2022, the CARA's National Women Religious Archive Survey Report indicated a couple of points. And keeping in mind this is in 2022, so there was 3% within that year, so that's done with. 3 to 5 years was 15%, so at this point, they have 1 to 3 years remaining. I was supposed to be in that category with my community. The majority of the FCA fit around 10 years. So 5 to 10 years at that time was 21%. And 10 years plus is another 20%. And we're finding our communities are right around that cusp, somewhere before or after that 10 years. The scary thing was back in 2022, and I really hope this has changed significantly, is 41% were unknown. I really hope that that is getting below 20% soon. The other thing that I found kind of affirming of our work was that respondents anticipated transitioning their archive to a repository that most favored a charism-based archive by 42%. This confirmed what we were feeling through the FCA work starting back in 2017. The FCA will be an operational facility by or before 2033. Should a community need to move prior to that date, my community is potentially one of those, we have a temporary facility and we'll have an archivist available for oversight. That's already defined. We know the steps to take. Let's talk about the FCA structure currently. The board has representation from its participating entities to ensure care of the collections in the Franciscan Charism. Our past working group is now our Council of Partners, which comprises of leaders, archivists, and advisors. This is a shared space for updates, conversations, and decisions. And it's happening frequently for us at this point. Generally, it's about every other month. We now have 4 committees. The first is executive with finance and staffing. The next is archive for policy, procedures, preparations, moving, etc. The third is education, outreach, and publications. I'll put a plug in here. That committee has put out a really great newsletter that's out on our table. I encourage you to read it. And then the fourth is advancement for development and fundraising, and this is initiating through a process. Committees focus on the necessary work to grow our organization. Let's talk about some values and needs. We value our partners' voice, their participation, and work towards the decision-making process, bylaws, policy and procedures, and initial agreements. We recognize their needs, and we are working to meet them. We recognize the value of processing and describing the collections within their communities to document the provenance and intent, thus preserving the integrity prior to moving the collections. Who knows those collections best? It's the sisters that created them. That's of high value for us. Each archive, as Veronica indicated, will be inventoried with simple collection summaries. Veronica has gathered from the members their record groups, and archivists are defining their controlled vocabularies, starting with members and sites. The FCA, as a group, and primarily from the board out, will be initiating a shared content management system to facilitate accessibility for its members and researchers. And the FCA is taking that part on because we don't want to stress out our members' archivists. So we're starting it for them. Each community's lived experience and expression of charism is evidenced in the archives and their collection descriptions. And that's where the value is. Through the process of organizational growth, the FCA has recognized that to move forward, it needs support from experts, particularly in the field of philanthropy. After reviewing and receiving proposals from 2 organizations, the FCA chose to work with Ally Sterling Philanthropy. It is a female-based consulting firm with an understanding and experience of our charism across sectors and ministry. Ally and her team have brought us through our initial phase of stakeholder engagement with leadership. This was an interview process with partner leadership, archivists, and advisors. The results inform both the partners and the FC board. This assists us to take next steps with focus groups for broader inclusion and setting the stage for fundraising. It also has confirmed the desire for a charism-based collaborative that aligns with our values and faith. This is reflective in the findings from the CARA report. It has provided clarity in next steps, which align with charism and mission. So what do we know? What have we found out? Our facility, what does our facility need to be? The FCA will be a physical center following archival standards with a shared storage, library, and reading room. Researchers will be able to study congregations, shared ministries, and the living of the Franciscan charism across collections. There will be an exhibition space, lecture hall, and virtual presence. The FCA's educational programs will carry the members' charism and legacy into the future. The FCA communities from across the country, and we do span truly from California to New York. And so we also recognize that in this process, we talked to each of our members and we did our research with multiple cities, buildings, and properties. Even affiliations of Franciscan colleges and universities were evaluated. We spent 3 years deliberating locations before deciding to join the Chicago Collaborative Archive Center. This provides a major benefit for the FCA. It is allowing us to focus our time and energy on the members' archives and in their preparation, while the CCAC focuses on the facility and overarching organization. So for us, we're thinking of the CCAC as the umbrella for which we are coming in as a member. The CCAC is a not-for-profit that will be a collaborative archive in Chicago that offers economy of scale, shared resources, professional interaction, and will be a central repository for scholars. It is similar to a cooperative in structure. We know that there is strength in a collaborative archive. You've heard about it through this process of other endeavors. The value of individual collections within such a repository are increased by the presence of others. It is open to both religious and non-religious entities. We are looking towards having archives with local roots, city and state entities. The cost would be proportional to the whole. This solution offers economy of scale. The cost will be based upon the size of the archival needs. Individual funding can be reduced given the number of archives that will share the facility and services. The board of directors are responsible for managing and safeguarding the operation in perpetuity. And so in our case, there's the CCAC board and the FCA board. We have 2 layers of protection. The CCAC has been in active conversation with Preservation Chicago, the FCA, the Order of Friars Minor, Our Lady of Guadalupe, Provincial Archives and Library. So this is the OFMs. They've recently gone from 6 provinces into 1. And the Nona McGrill Center for Dominican Studies at Dominican University. And that is Chris Allison, who you spoke before. And there are Dominican congregations that have interest in depositing their archives in the Nona McGrill. Currently, we're hearing about 2. But I know that there's a lot of discussion going on for Dominican congregations. Dominican University has a religious archive focused and a Focus MLIS program. This relationship with the university, the center, and its graduate programs are important to us. I am really excited about the potential for internships, for research, for programming, and advocacy. There's so many possibilities. The students could even be part of things like communications. It doesn't matter. There's students there in Chicago ready to do work. Board members have a knowledge and connection to architects and engineers, as well as foundations and potential donors that understand the value of history, historic preservation, and archives. That CCAC board has a much broader base to talk to than we did. The CCAC also has a broader source of potential through donors, through shared development and programming, more than any one archive or smaller collaborative could ever have. Chicago has the reputation for being a center for learning with the multiple universities. It is the headquarters for the Society of American Archivists and the American Library Association. Chicago also has easy access to public transportation and 2 major airports. The facility will meet professional standards for environmental control, and we have exhibition space, lecture hall, classrooms, and board meeting rooms. The building will have compact storage, where space can be rented to corporate organizations who need the paintings and objects, diversifying the sources of income. Shared support services will allow archivists to focus on the archives. Facilities management will oversee the systems and maintenance of the building. Centralized IT can facilitate a shared content management system, or at least manage it, as well as a digital repository, website, server, security system. The CCAC plans to have a digital media center as well as conservation labs. We can then let the archivists just send the media to get scanned with professional standards rather than us having to dedicate the time to do it. And as you've heard before, this also lines up. The CCAC plans to open by 2033. Oh, and the building, also retail, it is Chicago. Now to the fun stuff.
Yes, I've been assured that I've got the fun part of the presentation. When we speak of shared history and connections among the partners of a charism-based repository, I'm going to be referring here specifically to the context of the FCA, but I have no doubt whatsoever that these specifics can and do find themselves replicated in the realities of other charism families. The partners of a charism-based repository are linked by their common rule. In the case of FCA, it is, of course, the rule of St. Francis. We're linked by a common charism, which for us is in response to the call of Francis to live the gospel in the marketplace. And again, for us, a spirituality rooted in the 4 fundamental values of Franciscanism: conversion to God and neighbor, poverty, minority, and contemplation. But there's more. If these were our only commonalities, it would be considerable. But there are more links and unifying factors which continue to come to light as we pursue our assessments and develop our archival partnerships. Historical, ministerial, administrative. Some links have been long known among congregations. Others have been more recently recognized and reinvigorated. I'll share just a few of the connections which we've experienced to this point. 3 of our partners are connected as provinces of the same congregation. The Sisters of St. Francis of Penance and Christian Charity, my congregation, is an international one whose members are celebrating 150 years of North American presence this year. Originally mission territory, the North American province was established in 1900, with houses and ministries spread across the continental U.S. The province was then divided into 3 new provinces as of January 1st, 1939. The archival collections reflect this reality, as early administrative records remained with the Eastern or Holy Name Province, and records related to specific local convents and places of ministries are divided with material predating the division remaining with me in the East, and records created later being, of course, part of the archives of the new provinces. Interprovincial activities are documented across the provinces and include initiatives such as later interprovincial novitiates, vow programs, a juniorate, and tertianships. One joint educational endeavor was that of the St. Francis School of Nursing in Minot, North Dakota, an outgrowth of an earlier nursing program. In 1958, it became the training program for the 3 provinces, with faculty comprised of sister nurses from all 3. The program became affiliated with Minot State College, and in 1969-70 became the basis of a 4-year nursing program there at Minot State under the direction of Sister Mabel Meng. The St. Francis School of Nursing itself closed in 1971, but lives on at Minot State. The interprovincial activities of the past have generated records connected to all of the provinces, and these links continue with a series of interprovincial chapters of MATS, interprovincial spiritual and retreat opportunities, and records related to the jointly sponsored mission in Palenque, Chiapas, Mexico. Other FCA partners are connected, and my apologies if I've messed up any of the lineage here. I'm not as intimately familiar as I am with my own congregation. But these congregations are known affectionately as Al's Gals, after Mother Alfred Mose. Mother Alfred, directly or indirectly, was responsible for the founding of several congregations and lived for a time with yet another, all after she first took vows as a Marianite of the Holy Cross in Indiana. Mother Alfred was accepted into Third Order Regular of St. Francis by Father Pamphilo de Magliano of St. Bonaventure College on June 1st, 1863. She first founded the Sisters of St. Francis of Mary Immaculate in Joliet, Illinois, and was summoned to St. Bonaventure, New York by Father Pamphilo. There, on August 2nd, 1865, he named her the first General Superior of the new congregation. Big of him since she had founded it. At the same time, he received the first novice in the new congregation. And while they were there, the two sisters stayed with the Franciscan Sisters of Allegheny at St. Elizabeth Mother House, right across the road from St. Bonaventure. It was there that the sisters were introduced to the Alleghenies constitutions, and they in turn used those until 1880. Mother Alfred later was sent to Minnesota, where another congregation, the Sisters of St. Francis of Our Lady of Lourdes, the Rochester Franciscans, came into being. Here again, she was responsible for many educational institutions and St. Mary's Hospital, which ultimately formed the basis for the world-renowned Mayo Clinic. Two other congregations trace their heritage to Mother Alfred. In 1901, 3 sisters from Joliet established a new community right here in St. Louis, the Franciscan Sisters of Our Lady of Perpetual Help. In 1916, sisters from Rochester went to Sylvania, Ohio, and ultimately established the Franciscan Sisters of the Immaculate Conception. While not all of Al's Gals are current FCA partners, the archives of all these congregations have materials documenting the links among them and the connection between sisters and ministries throughout the Midwest. The Sisters of St. Francis of Assisi in St. Francis, Wisconsin, and the Franciscan Sisters of Perpetual Adoration in La Crosse, Wisconsin, also share a common history and trace their origin to a group of German Franciscan tertiaries whose female members in 1849 became the very first order of vowed Franciscan women to be established in the United States. By 1872-73, the 2 branches of the original foundation became established as separate congregations. Over the years, further developments led to the 1973 formation of the Franciscan Sisters of the Eucharist, who split from the La Crosse group. And then in 2001 came the merger of the Franciscan Sisters of Baltimore with the Sisters of St. Francis of Assisi. Again, the related histories and developments of ministries and spirituality are documented in the respective archives. The links are many. Other connections exist among and between FCA partners, as well as with non-partner Franciscan congregations. Records within the archives of these congregations tell the story of transfers of ministries and sisters between congregations. It wasn't easy in the old days, but it happened. There also has been assistance in congregational reorganization rendered by one congregation to another. Such connections exist between the Sisters of St. Francis of Penance and Christian Charity and the Sisters of the Third Order of St. Francis of Penance and of Charity, the Tiffin Franciscans. Throughout our assessment process, we've also learned that the archival records of the common Third Order regular novitiates are held by several of our FCA partners. Together, these collections record the development and history of the Eastern Franciscan Common Novitiate, the Common Franciscan Novitiate Midwest, and the merger of these two programs to form the Third Order Regular Franciscan Common Novitiate. The assessments have also brought out the fact that several of our FCA partners have ministries, missions, or provinces in Brazil, some in the same area of that country. This awareness may lead not only to archival sharing and collaboration, but the Charism collaborative approach may also expand to leadership conversation circles and wider intercongregational support and cooperation. Each of the partner collections is in and of itself a valuable piece of the history and legacy of Franciscan women religious in North America. But the value is increased tremendously by bringing them together in a single Charism-based repository where the archival materials supplement each other for the benefit of future researchers.
I think I'll need to plug the audio back in. Yeah, that's for the filming, sorry. It was causing some interference, so we cut it until we need it, which now is the time. Sister Joanne Schatzline, as Michelle shared earlier, is director of the Sisters of St. Francis of Assisi, and she's one of our FCA partner members. And she's kindly recorded a statement to share her draw to a charism-based collaborative initiative and interest in preserving their history in the broader context of the Franciscan tradition.
Hold on, it's not showing that way. I have to exit out.
And just bear with us for a minute. We've had some adventures with this.
Didn't switch.
Maybe I have to shut this right
Or minimize it. Hold, please.
Yeah, okay, there we go. Oh. Yay.
There we go.
Yay.
I was wanting to hold on strong. Okay, Sister Joanne.
Well, greetings, everyone. My name is Sister Joanne Schatzline. I'm a sister of St. Francis of Assisi. Our congregation is located in St. Francis, Wisconsin, which is south of Milwaukee. We're right across from Lake Michigan and sometimes known as the Lake Franciscans. I assumed my current role as director of the congregation about a year ago. And as I began liaisoning with various people, one of the first people that I met with was Sister Seal Struck, who is our archivist. And there were two main concerns that were going on at the time in our archives. We always knew that at one point in time we were going to have to choose a location to house our archives. And I came into the office knowing that those might be available, some options. But in talking with Seal, we are part of a Wisconsin religious collaborative, and Seal was a member of a subcommittee that was part of that collaborative that was looking at archival holdings. This collaborative contains religious congregations of various charisms. They're not all Franciscan, they're diverse. Some of them are smaller in number, and so of course the issue about archives has been on the table for a while. But Seal's concern was, and one of the first things she presented to me was that committee was disbanded. And of course, my question was, why was it disbanded? And it was because most of the sisters in those congregations had found another place to locate their archives. So we began looking at that, and I suggested to Seal find out where they went. And of course, she was familiar with other locations where archival holdings were being collected. I think Boston College was one of them, Notre Dame was another one of them. Some of them were becoming full already, but others were being formed, knowing that we currently have a debt on our current convent we had to rebuild. It's about 6 years old now. That was going to be formidable for us to think about while we were also trying to pay down that debt. So Seal started to look into other places that might be possible. And I believe it was the sisters in Rochester, Minnesota, the Franciscan sisters, who recommended us that we might be a member partner in this, and sent Seal some information about FCA. And she brought that material to our meetings, and the brochure, it was very simple, and it was an excellent description of the services. And I think both of us realized that we had really found our future home. And there were two main reasons that we were very attracted to becoming part of FCA. One was that it was Franciscan, and I have my master's degree in Franciscan studies, and I understand the value of archival holdings. Everything about the Franciscan family is found through research in various libraries and holdings and materials, and so I know we treasure our particular archives because we're the first Franciscan congregation to establish itself in the United States in 1849. And this is our 175th anniversary of foundation. And so all of that meant that there is a wealth of information on our particular foundation that might be a resource for people in the future. So the fact that FCA was looking to bring Franciscan congregations of both men and women together and have as part of it a research center was very, very attractive to us. The second very attractive piece was because FCA is in its initiation, or it's in the building process, what they were asking of us as an annual contribution would be $10,000. And that was affordable for us. Or even if it wasn't, we felt that that's the commitment that we could make to become part of FCA. And so for those two reasons, Seal made sure that we got connected, and I think we had some initial introductory meetings, and then we had this wonderful visit from Veronica, who came to assess our archives, and that was wonderful because I think what that did was assure us that our archivist and her assistant have left us in a very good position. Veronica, I think, was quite impressed with the organization of our information that Seal has done, and that made me pretty proud. I think to know that that was being recognized was a great affirmation for Seal. So then other partner ministries, we are connected by foundation with the Franciscan Sisters of Perpetual Adoration. And we've been with them throughout this whole 175th celebration. But Seal got to know their archivist, and we were able to encourage them about the value of coming to FCA. So I'm pretty proud that we kind of convinced our sisters in La Crosse to become partners in this organization. I think they're just in the beginning stages of that. And I can tell Veronica, you're going to have a wonderful time assessing their archives. And I think they're equally as prepared for this kind of thing, but they were not looking at what to do long term. So I'm pretty proud of that. So I guess in the end, I would just encourage everybody who is Franciscan to really look at the values that exist in becoming one of the partner members of FCA. I think it's good that we have a little bit of time to settle into this, that we can do strategic planning. I know Seal and Sarah have created our own timeline that kind of goes along with the plan for FCA, who is not quite settled in a building yet. And that's beneficial for us because we can then strategize how to prepare our own holdings and be ready to make the move whenever FCA opens. So in closing, I would just like to commend the work of this board with Holly and Veronica and the other members. One of the gifts we've been able to contribute is our archivist as a member of the board and her assistant as one of the marketing writers. We give those kinds of gifts when we might not be able to in the future provide financially at the amount that we'd like. But we plan on planning that for the future. That is a part of our own strategic plan to be able to not only house our archives, but to be able to support the archivists into the future when we're no longer here to oversee that. So I thank you for the opportunity to share this. I am very, very pleased. And if we can be of any other assistance in the future, I think through Seal and Sarah, we certainly know how we can contribute. So I highly encourage anybody else to look seriously at becoming members of FCA in the future. So thank you very much for this opportunity. And God bless everybody. Amen.
It jumped backwards. Here we go. Okay. So, thank you for hanging in there with us. So, the FCA charism to broader relationships. The shared Franciscan charism has brought together the current partners of the FCA and led us to further collaboration with others. As a planning and investigating of possibilities has continued and will continue, the FCA has found additional ways to engage with broader segments of the Franciscan family. We are excited by the prospect of having a shared library and reading room with the Order of Friars Minor, our new Our Lady of Guadalupe Provincial Archives and Library. That's their six provinces in the United States coming together as one, and that happened about a year ago. This is an opportunity to review and bring together our library holdings so that we can have a broader resource for charism-based researchers. This will provide a truly Franciscan center. Another area. There is now a Franciscan Forum that is a charism-based group with historians and representatives from congregations, higher education, and organizations such as the FCA, the OFMs, retreat centers, and CFIT, the Commission on Franciscan Intellectual Tradition. We are working to evaluate, document, and preserve the history and legacy and voice of the Franciscan movement across the country through shared grants, research, and advocacy. We also discuss collections and media at risk. We are a space for problem solving, to gain advice, share expertise, and resources. We are growing to be a source for advocacy. Our next steps include collaborative grants. One, to assist our related archives, and two, to build upon information gathered by Paul Spaeth's inventory of third-order regular sisterhoods. The aim is to first create a resource guide and then a Franciscan database that will grow modestly initially and over time, which will list, this is the ultimate goal, list congregations and their collections with related information on where they have been located, where are they currently, associates, affiliates, and seculars, because this is important to us, historians, retreat centers, as well as college and universities, past and present, with a focus on where are all of these archival holdings currently. We also wish to identify if there are past and closed congregational records and where are they currently being held. Through this word of mouth, we've actually been able to advocate and talk to where some have been kind of orphaned. So the long-term goal is to make this database publicly available online with interactive mapping, and to develop a Franciscan digital repository with links of participating in related organizations. For this work, we are fortunate to have Danny Michaels. He's the Chief Technology Officer of the National Institute of Newman Studies, who has also created digital collections for CFIT and Newman University. So he is providing advice, he is providing guidance, he's also helping us work on our, I guess you'd say, standards for our next grant. So with network layers, we will share our charism now and into the future. We are working on strengthening our connection and support now so that we will have it to help carry our legacy into the future. We recognize that we are stronger together.
We're in the closing run here. The shared charism of Francis and Claire has brought us to this point of collaboration. In the past, days which I'm sure many of us remember to a greater or lesser extent, congregations tended to essentially protect their turf. In any city, I'm sure most of us could point out the schools and other ministries that belong to the Franciscans, and those over there belong to the Dominicans, and there were the Mercies, and the Felicians, and the Sisters of St. Joseph, etc. We tended to hold on to our own, and generally didn't intermingle with or collaborate to any great extent with one another. Thankfully, this mode of operation began to break down over the past 50 years or so. There are many ways in which congregations work together on projects, share personnel, and welcome the fact that indeed we are all on the same side. We have also learned and recognized that we cannot do it alone. This is no less true for us in the archives world. Funding, technology, publicity, legal and administrative issues are common concerns for all archives, collaboratives as well as individual repositories. We need each other. We can and do learn from each other. Collaboratives of one sort or another seem to be an essential part of our future. No one collaborative model can or should serve everyone. After all, even the National Archives has branches. Collaboratives should not only be partnerships among their members, but must work with each other to ensure that the vital legacy of women and men religious is preserved and made accessible for future generations. And I think we all look forward to the day when there's a true national conglomerate of related collaboratives and larger repositories. Thank you very much, and we'll turn it back to Michelle.
Thank you all so much for sharing this really exciting project. Does anyone have any questions?
Hello, my name is Sister Vicki Chambers, and I'm a school sister at Notre Dame. And I'm also a graduate of Cardinal Stewart University in Milwaukee. So I was wondering, do you possess the university archives of Cardinal Stritch University?
No, I can actually see that went to the Archdiocese. Yes.
It did? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, that was actually happening while I was there for the assessment. It was a whirlwind time.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm also a member of the National Black Sisters Conference that was established in 1968. And I am the archives contact with this organization. So this particular organization, the membership are religious from all over the country. And so our archives is located at Marquette University. And the archives for the National Black Catholic Clergy Caucus, their archives is located at University of Notre Dame. So we are very proactive of securing not only the history, but also to share the stories of our respective congregations. And so that's why I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Vicki.
Thank you. Who else has a question? I have one.
Sure.
You said that you are taking in corporate collections to help offset costs. Can you explain more about that?
That's a Holly question.
So unless it's a Franciscan corporation, it's going to the Chicago Collaborative Archives Center. And for that, we're talking with different organizations. Those are mostly rooted in Chicago, Illinois area. But that would be going in under the branch of the larger umbrella, the Chicago Collaborative Archives Center, for which we are one member.
Yeah, Jet Magazine was one.
Well, and I don't know if that, so one talk is about Jet Magazine, and parts of that went to the Smithsonian for digitization, but they want to bring the physical copies back and to where. And so that's part of the conversations that some of the other board members are having. And other nonprofits can also be in the Chicago Collaborative Archives Center. So Preservation Chicago, they have been advocated, and they've gotten, I think it's the Chicago Tribune, and some of their photography collection is coming into the CCAC.
Thank you. Does anyone else?
Hi, I'm Brenda from the Visitation Sisters, and I'm wondering, one of the slides that went by said something about a shared content management system. Have you been looking at different ones, or what have you discovered is out there? Because that's what prompted our creation of our consortium, so.
So definitely, I think you mentioned Archivist, and that's a popular one. That's a popular one with universities. That is on the list. We have some people that are strongly cheerleading for A to M, for which the friars and myself are going to be test boxing and testing out. And we have some people that are still holding on to, and I only see this for museum collection, not archive side, but some people like their past perfect. But that's lower on the list. I see A space or A to M. And A to M, some people really like because of the languages aspect, that you can have multiple languages going in there. So those are the two hot ones.
Hi, I'm Myra, a Springfield Dominican. I did have one question because I have been attending those CCAC meetings when they come up. But, okay, I don't want this to sound rude, but how realistic is that for us to not only secure that building, but the funds for that building to come to completion by arguably 2023?
Okay. So I am assuming you're talking about the buildings owned by the feds. Yes. So that, they did just make that decision public that they are saving those buildings. And we are now September. So next month they're going to, hopefully September, sometimes they roll it 1 month further, but they're going to be releasing their requests for the proposals. And so The CCAC is one with a few going in on that request for proposal. Here's the thing. We already have our developer, we have our architects, we have our engineers, and we have a tax attorney ready on board with us. That is one option in the mix and review. The other building is called Lighter 2, and that's a Sears and Roebuck original building, and they even used to at one point have their warehouse in there. It's downtown across from the public library. That's another building, and that was, what's the name of the university? Robert Morris. Yeah. They were in that. I think they got out of it about a year, maybe going on 2 now. My time is mushing. But on the 7th floor of that building was a library. Oh, yeah. So it's been actively in use.
We found a 3D tour of it online, so we're like, at least we know we have one floor going in. That's already pretty settled.
Yeah, and that building, so the board has got kind of a range of views on this one, and it's coming to a head. In fact, in 2 weeks we're having a meeting with everybody. I like that or the Lighter 2 building because it takes over the whole block. It's low, in fact, by comparison. It's only like 8 stories. That base floor is great for compact storage. It has nice access around the back for a loading dock, and we can lease with the university on the back side of that too. And right now, that is in a shared bank ownership. I forgot the fancy term for it. Yeah, it was foreclosed upon. And so they're resolving the last legal issues with the past owner, and they expect in a year or 2, and we've already talked with them, the developers talked with them. So we have our list that we're reviewing with the tax attorney, and we're telling other people, if you have a different building you want us to consider, you got to bring it to the list. So the list now has like 7 buildings, but those are the top 2 contenders, and it depends who you are on the board right now. But it's going into debate, but we will be putting an RFP or proposal in for the GSA buildings. But if you really want more information, we have a brochure out there so you can see who our developer and architects and engineers are. Capri Capital, Quentin Primo, he's the developer, and right now he's taking on the Thompson Center in Chicago. Yeah, for Google.
Thank you. Anybody else have a question? All right, anything else you guys like to tell us?
Well, one thing I talked about with Catherine Lucy earlier in the conference that I didn't really address in the section about the assessment, we do take into account digital collections or what material is digitally in the archives. So I always say the first day of the 2-day assessment is counting boxes and the second day is counting gigabytes. But, you know, it's a little more serious than that. But we do kind of have that sense, too, collectively of how much, which now I think we're around 10 to 12 terabytes, which Catherine was saying you have 100, right?
We're estimating 100 after some additional collections come our way.
Sure.
Yeah. So we're a ways from that, but we're still, I mean, even at the 10 to 12, you know, what are our long-term solutions for digital? And of course, that's going to continue to grow in the future. So just wanted to bring that up as a part of the assessment. Yeah.
Anyone else? Well, thank you all so much for sharing with us. It was great to have you here.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.